All right, so final exams are just around the corner, and I know Agile Methods is on the list for a lot of you. But don't sweat it, I've got your back. Think of this as your personal study guide. We're going to break down everything you need to know about Scrum planning, step by step. By the time we're done, you'll be more than ready for those exam questions. So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the why behind it all, the core idea of commitment. Then we'll get into the nuts and bolts, crafting user stories, estimating with story points, and actually running a sprint. And we'll wrap it all up with the most critical piece of the puzzle, the Scrum mindset. It flows just like a real project, which should make it way easier to remember. Okay, first things first. To really get what Scrum planning is all about, you have to understand the foundation it's built on. And it's not just about a process. It's really about a shared attitude. This quote from Mike Cohn just nails it. Scrum is not about one person doing their little piece of the puzzle. It's about collective ownership. The entire team commits together. So if you see an exam question about the heart of Scrum planning, remember this phrase: we're all in this together. It's a team sport. So that brings up a really good question, right? Why all the fuss? What is the actual fundamental problem that Scrum was created to solve in the first place? This one number, explains almost everything. It's from a famous study called the Chaos Report, and it is just staggering. It found that 64% of features in software were rarely or even never used. Just think about that. All that work, all that time, all that money, basically wasted. And that is the big why. The entire Scrum planning process is basically a giant defense mechanism against building useless stuff. It's designed to force everyone to constantly ask, are we building something people will actually use and value? So, how do we make sure we're not building those useless features? Well, it all starts with the first practical tool you absolutely need to know. If we want to build what users need, we have to, understand those needs first. And that's where user stories come into play. So, what exactly is a user story? Well, in short, it's a simple, non-technical description of a feature, but it's told from the perspective of the person who actually wants it. This is the fundamental building block of work in Scrum. Now, this you're definitely going to want to remember for the exam. The structure is super simple but incredibly powerful. It's, as a type of user, I want to do something so that I can achieve some goal. This little formula makes sure that every single thing the team works on is tied directly to a real person and a real benefit. And this simple structure is a fantastic way to avoid a common trap called gold plating. That's when developers add all these extra bells and whistles because they think they're cool, not because a user actually asked for them. User stories keep the team laser-focused on user value. But wait, how does anyone know when a story is actually finished? That's where this key concept comes in, the conditions of satisfaction. Just think of it as the story's checklist. It spells out, very clearly, what needs to be true for everyone on the team to agree, yep, this one is officially done. Okay, so now we have our user stories. The next big question is, how much work are they? This is another huge piece of Scrum planning, and probably something you'll see on the test. And here's a hint, it's not about counting hours. See, instead of guessing how many hours or days something might take, which, let's be real, humans are terrible at, Scrum teams use something called story points. It's a relative number. It's not tied to time. It's about effort, complexity, and risk, all rolled into one. Now, here's where it gets really powerful. After a few sprints, the team can look back and see the average number of story points they get done. That average is called their velocity. And velocity is like a superpower for planning, because it helps them predict, with pretty good accuracy, how much work they can realistically take on in the future. So at the end of the day, using story points does more than just estimate work. It changes the whole conversation. It makes planning a collaborative, less stressful activity and really builds that sense of shared ownership and commitment we talked about earlier. All right, we've defined the work with user stories and we've sized it up with story points. Now it's time to actually do it. Let's look at how a team manages all that work during a sprint, which is just that set period of time where they focus on getting things done. It usually plays out on a visual task board. You've probably seen one. It's super simple. You have columns for to do, in progress, and done. This makes the workflow completely transparent. Anyone in the team can see the status of every single piece of work at a glance. No hidden surprises. And to see how they're progressing toward their goal, teams use a nifty tool called a burn-down chart. Think of it like a countdown clock for their work. It's a simple graph that shows the amount of work left to do, the story points, going down day by day.
It's an instant visual check. Are we on track or are we falling behind? Okay, we're at our final section, and honestly, this is the most important part of the whole thing. You can memorize every term and every process, but if you don't get this, you don't really get Scrum. It is so much more than a process, it's a culture. Everything in Scrum is powered by these 5 core values: commitment to the team and its goals, focus on the work you've promised to do, openness about problems and progress, respect for your teammates and their ideas, and the courage to tackle tough challenges and do the right thing. These values are the engine that makes the whole thing run. And these aren't just words on a poster. The team actively practices these values in their daily rituals. Things like the quick daily stand-up meeting or the retrospective at the end of a sprint, where they talk about what went well and what didn't. Those are specifically designed to reinforce these values and help the team get better and better over time. So as you head into that final exam, here's the one thought I want to leave you with. Scrum gives a team a fantastic framework, a great set of tools. But real agility, the kind that builds amazing software and avoids that 64% of wasted features, that comes from the culture. It comes from the team's mindset. The process is the map, but the culture is what actually powers the journey. Now go ace that exam. You've got this.